welcome everyone. You are joining us for another episode of Innovative Women in Leadership virtual event series brought to you by Thoughtexchange. One of the reasons I'm so excited about this particular episode is that as a leader in sales, and especially as a woman in a traditionally male-dominated job function, I'm super excited to welcome our guest, Alice Kemper, who is the president at Sales Training Consultants. She's going to talk to us about women in sales leadership. How do we get here and what is in store for our future? But before we get started on that, I want to invite you to join the conversation using these hashtags, hashtag TEVE for Thought Exchange virtual events. We like to call this must-see TEVE, which this certainly is today. Or use our other hashtag, hashtag I will with one L, Innovative Women in Leadership. So if you are posting any of these golden nuggets of wisdom that you get out of these virtual events, which we certainly hope you do, that you use these hashtags on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, whatever your social media of choice is. Please use these hashtags when you join the conversation outside of the event. Inside the event, though, we do want to invite you to use the chat box. Amelia, our lovely program director, she is, of course, monitoring that. Any questions, thoughts, things that you think of as we're doing this virtual event, feel free to use the chat box to interact with all the other attendees today. And tell us where you're calling from. Tell us who you are, what you're hoping to learn. We're excited to interact with you that way. Now I want to introduce you to our speaker for today. Alice Kemper's mom will tell you she knew she wanted to be a teacher as soon as she could speak, and Alice graduated with a teaching degree and became a public school educator. What Alice didn't know was that she would catapult her teaching of sixth graders to adults by combining her teaching, sales, and sales leadership skills to become a worldwide recognized sales training expert, which is true. You are such an accomplished sales leader, Alice, and we're so excited to have you here today.
Thank you so much. You know, Angela, I listened to many of your interviews, and I have to say, you are an impressive interviewer.
Oh,
and
thanks.
You're fabulous. And also, you bring such talent to your listeners. So I'm really honored to be invited to share my story with your people today.
Oh, that's so great, Alice. I mean, this is the Mutual Admiration Society event. I'm so excited to have someone with your profile and your caliber on the show today. It's really wonderful. So thanks for joining us. Quick insight, guys, into what our agenda is for today. We're going to be talking about the history of women in sales and where we are now, right? How did we get here? We're going to talk about Alice in particular and how she was a trailblazer to get so many women and really be a role model for women in sales and sales leadership. We're going to talk about her journey, of course, and how she broke through that glass ceiling. And then we want to make sure you leave with a bunch of tips and tricks so that you can also forge your own path into sales leadership. So it's going to be a really exciting event and we're ready to get started. But before we do, one of the things I like to do always, Alice, with my 5-star leaders like yourself is to ask them our 5-star questions. Are you ready for those?
I'm ready.
Okay. Beach or mountains?
Oh, beach. I live in Florida.
Exactly. I knew how you were going to answer that one for sure. Okay. Road trips or air travel?
Air travel. Anything more than 3 hours, get me on an airplane.
I love it. In-person meetings or virtual meetings?
In-person meetings.
Okay. Salty snacks or sweet tooth?
Sweet tooth. Chocolate.
Oh, okay. Chocolate. All right. Do you like dark chocolate, milk chocolate, all chocolate?
I eat all chocolate.
Okay, noted. Okay, and then Twitter or Instagram?
Twitter. I'm not Instagram yet.
Oh, that's so funny. Okay, you can teach me all the ways of Twitter because I'm not really Twitter. I don't know how to speak Twitter. So I'll remember that.
I'm older than you, so Twitter came before Instagram.
That's true. That's true. But I think that the more versed you can be in all social media, the better.
Yes.
So we can help each other on those things. Okay, Alice, I'm excited to jump into the interview today. You know, one of the things that we want to start with is really finding out, you know, your biography. You talk about how you started in teaching. So I'm curious to know, and I know our attendees want to know, how did you really manage to get into sales? And then once you did, how did you kind of forge your way into middle management?
Okay. So as you mentioned in my bio, I really, from the minute I could talk, I knew I wanted to be a teacher. I played with all my dolls downstairs and a chalkboard and everything. And I did teach and I loved it and I had a passion for it. Unfortunately, when I was teaching, we were working without a contract. So 3 years, 5 years later, I'm earning the exact same income I did from day one. And it's, as a single person at the time, it was very difficult to buy, to do your overhead, I call that living, buying and saving. And of course you need shoes and clothes and entertainment. And you can do 2 of the 3, but it was very hard on the teacher salary to do all 3. And so really I was like, what else can I do without going back to college? And because I took the LSAT pre-test and I flunked it. So it was like, okay. I wasn't going to be a lawyer. And a friend of mine was on the tennis court every day at 2:30 and I was home at 3:30 because I was a teacher. And I said to him, what do you do? And he sold for Seagram's Liquors. And that's when I said, okay, let me take a look into sales. And at that time, the only sales jobs really that were out there were pharmaceutical sales and cosmetic sales. So, and I was a no makeup kind of girl. And I went on a Revlon interview and at the fair, I flunked after the first question. My girlfriends had made me up and dressed me up. And I don't know what they asked me, but I had no clue what they were talking about.
So what you're saying though, Alice, though, is that for women is really, you even found that the opportunities were limiting for you at that point. You could either go into pharmaceutical sales or cosmetic sales. Everything else, it was a total man's world and they just probably wouldn't even interview you.
It really will. And for your listeners, I'll tell you, this was in the mid 70s.
Okay.
So, and there were very few women in sales. In fact, the company I ended up getting hired with had put a directive out to, if you were a sales manager and you were willing to hire a woman, we would really appreciate if you would, because we have a government mandate to meet. And I will do a shout out. I don't know where he is. I've tried to find him, but I want to thank Bernie Martinez for hiring me. He took a big quantum leap and he was very willing to hire me. So I found out I was the 11th woman in an 870 person national sales force.
Wow, that's incredible. And it's funny because you talk about this as the mid 70s. That wasn't that long ago. And even the language that was being used in the process of kind of recruiting candidates, if you would be willing as a manager, that's just, it's so beyond me. And I think it really speaks to to where we've come, to how far we've come, but it's still frightening to think about how it wasn't that long ago.
Right. I agree. I think the one difference I'm hoping is different is, of course, all the men and the rumors I heard behind the scenes was, of course, I slept with Bernie and that's how I got the job. I'm hoping today that that's not part of the conversation. But that's what happened. And so I sold for them for several years and then I got promoted into sales management with them. And again, the rumors, the same thing, I had a new manager when I got promoted. So of course I was sleeping with him. Of course. And so, one thing that I sat back and when I was in sales and sales leadership, what I said was, if I am going to be the woman forging the way, and I'm very proud. I say I was a token woman, and I'm very proud of that. And what I said was I had to make all the other women out there proud, and I had to make it I wanted to make it easier for them. And I also have, I'm a high achiever. And so my whole thing is I'm going to do and be better than all of them.
I love it. I love it. We have a quick question, Alice, in the chat. What industry and what company was it that Bernie Martinez took a chance on you?
American greeting cards. And so the industry, was greeting cards. American Greetings was second in, Hallmark's #1. American Greetings was the #2 in the category.
Right. And the 11th woman on the sales, in the sales department of over 800.
Right. Right.
Wow, incredible. So how long was the journey from when you got hired? And then of course, like you said, you were proud to be the token woman. You were proud to be an overachiever because you almost felt this, I think, moral obligation to show the success that you could have. So how long did it take for you to progress as entry level into middle management?
I really did it in 2 years. So
Amazing.
in 2 years' time, and I don't recall if they were given the same, would you please promote a woman? But I would, when I got promoted, the next level up was assistant sales manager. And so my job as assistant sales manager, I had 22 salespeople, half the state of Florida, and my job was to coach and develop the salespeople. So Monday to Thursday, I was out riding with salespeople, hands-on in the field, and then on Friday was an office day. And I was the third woman in middle management, and they had no women in upper management.
Wow.
And the interesting thing is that middle management, that assistant sales manager job, it was known throughout the company that it was a 2-year position. And I was promoted at the same time with about 4 men that I was friendly with, that also was in my new hire training class when we went to Cleveland. So I knew a lot of people all over the country. And in year 2, all of a sudden, this one got his promotion and that one got his promotion, and they're all getting their promotion. And 2 years, 1 month goes by, 2 months goes by, 6 months go by, 7 months go by, and I'm not getting offered anything. So I speak up. And and it was very obvious over a period of time. They started making up new jobs for me.
I see.
Not anything they'd had before. And I felt they were very dead end. They were very limiting. They weren't the typical, there were 3 options that everybody went to, and they weren't offering me any of those 3. And so I saw the writing on the wall that they weren't taking a woman into the next level. But I will share what they did. It wasn't me. I ended up leaving, and they did promote a woman. She had been an assistant sales manager for 6 months. She was totally unqualified. And guess what? She crashed and burned, and they got to say, see?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't that fascinating? So there's a couple things I want to ask you about there. Even now, in a lot of these Innovative Women in Leadership virtual event series, we talk about the challenge in finding your voice to speak up, the confidence and the power necessary to and that's today in 2019. Some women still struggle with that. I'm curious to know what what inside of you made you feel okay? Was it your success that you'd had to date? Like, especially in that kind of climate, I'm curious to know, like, what inside of you made you feel powerful enough and confident enough to go and say, excuse me, it's my turn. Where's my seat at the table?
I'd have to say that was just my personal confidence and my goal setting. So when I was a teacher, I wanted to be a principal.
Right.
I was taking graduate courses to be a principal. So then when I left teaching, ended that. So then when I was with American Greeting Cards, it was just obvious to me I was going to go up the ladder,
Right.
Why not? I mean, I never had any doubt. That's what I was going to do. Then when I left American Greetings and I got hired by Hard Hanks Communications, and Hard Hanks, the largest direct mail company in the country and probably the world, but they also I was in their shopper division, which is an advertising division. It was the disruptor of the newspaper industry. So the shoppers are 100% advertising on newsprint stock as a magazine, and they're mailed into the homes. And as I said, they were the disruptors for the newspaper industry. And there was a startup here in Miami. And he needed somebody that had sales experience, sales management experience, coaching people. And Dick Mant, hired me. And now I forgot where I was going with that. But, so when I got into Hard Hanks, I saw the progression there. You were sales manager, VP of sales, general manager. From the get-go, that's what I was going to do. And so I never ended up being president or a top position, a VP of anything at American Greetings or at Hard Hanks. So I'm president of Sales Training Consultants, and Sales Training Works,
Yeah. So I love this, because I think what it is that not only did you find the voice, did you have the confidence, success, let me back up. Failure really was just never an option, right? It was just, progression was always on the table. And so when you couldn't get there, not only did you have the confidence to speak up about it But you also had the confidence to go, if it's not going to happen here, I'm going to take my skills and my expertise elsewhere.
Right. And I'm going to share something.
Yeah.
Go on.
Please share more about that, what that actually means.
Well, the other thing is when I left American Greetings and I went to recruiters and I said, okay, find me a sales management position somewhere. All of the recruiters said, well, we can't do that. You can't jump right into a company without having sold for them. And I said, excuse me, management is a lot harder than selling. I said, I've got the management skills. I developed a sales team from 0 to 33 on an outside sales team. I did a call center from 0 to 22. I said, the product knowledge is the easy part. The leadership skills is the hard part. I got the hard part. Teach me your product. And the recruiter said, we won't. And I said, okay, I'll find it on my own. And that's how I found Hard Hanks Communication. So back to it, it's just a belief in yourself, setting your goals, not people telling you no. Don't listen to the no's. You know, they don't know. If we don't listen to the no's, we wouldn't have the innovators that we have today in the world.
Yeah, in any industry, right? And across all genders. I think you're right. And I think one of the things too that's important is not listening to the no's outside of yourself, but not internalizing those no's inside of yourself as well. If you're hearing no's outside, you keep that resolve in you. And I think you've been such a good model. These stories are such a good model for us to say, you know, Alice didn't hear no and then go, okay, maybe it is a no. You heard the no and then you still did it in spite of that.
Yeah, you find a workaround. You know, if you come across an obstacle, you know, you find your workaround. It's problem solving.
I love that. So talk to me a little bit then about how you broke that glass ceiling. You know, you now are the president of this company. Talk to me about your progression to where you are now and how you didn't internalize those no's and you made sure you got to the top.
Well, you know, I have to thank again Dick Mant for and that's one thing for a leader. Believe in your people mean more than they believe in themselves. And even though I believed in myself a lot, Bernie Martinez believed in me, Dick Mant believed in me. And I just needed, again, I use the word proud, I needed to honor that. I needed to show them that they made the right choice. So it was partially for them and also partially because I had my goals and knew where I wanted to go in life too. So it's a combination of the two. And with the Hard Hanks, at one point they promoted me to VP of Sales and Marketing in Tucson, Arizona to do a turnaround there. And everything I read on how to do a turnaround, it's often the key people that need to be removed. They didn't remove the key person. And when I was called incompetent on a daily basis by the general manager, you know, and I said, this isn't a fit anymore. It's not a win-win. It wasn't winning for me. I was going home, putting the covers over my head and crying. It wasn't healthy for my sales, you know, my managers and salespeople. And it was, and Hard Hanks was losing. The company was losing out because I wasn't giving my best. So mine was a push come to shove. How I became president. It was what am I going to do? Am I going to go work for somebody else that doesn't believe in me, or can I make something happen? And I was very fortunate. Hard Hanks at the time, they were called executive consultants, I think, at the time. But what today is a business coach, an executive business coach. And they were psychologists at the time, is what they were. So the psychologist that was assigned to me as my coach from day one, when I finally said, this isn't working and all, he said, you're the best sales trainer that I've ever worked with. If you leave, I would use you for my clients. And he was the one that helped me sit down and put a business plan together to start a training solution firm.
Wow.
So that's, you know, and I was, I mean, I still have people emailing me today, or I'll run into someone that I trained, you know, 30, 40 years ago. And I had to go to a funeral recently of one of my sales reps, way back in the 80s. And all the women that were there that were sales reps for me, we went out for a drink and they started telling Alice-isms and telling me how, I mean, I was crying.
Yeah.
How and I, I mean, I didn't know how important I was to that many people, but I do know that I've changed a lot of people's lives. And
I love this, Alice. I think that there's a couple of things here that I want to really point out to a lot of our women who are listening and in attendance, is that when you couldn't find it in society or out in organizations, you built it yourself. And I think that that's so incredible. And I think that the second part of it is that you don't really ever recognize the sphere of influence that you have when you are forging that path, when you are being a trailblazer like you've been. And having that special moment with those women, I can only imagine that really showed you, it was a tangible example of the sphere of influence that you have had in your life.
Yeah, very much so. Thank you.
That's incredible. So talk to me a little bit about the tips and tricks then for the women who are, or even men, anytime that you find yourself in a place where someone isn't ready for you to progress in the way that you know that you're ready to progress. I'm curious to know, what advice do you have? You've helped so many people. You've trained so many people. Train us right now, Alice. Tell us about what we should be doing in those situations.
Well, just believe in yourself. Make a list of all your talents. What are you good at? Make a list of what your fears are and look at them. Are they real? Or are they, did somebody else put them in your head? Where'd they come from? And break through with that. The other thing is that I've learned, and I share with everybody, is you take responsibility for your own destiny. Don't allow someone else to have be responsible for that. And so that, and I call it's whether you're selling now or you're a leader now. I mean, a lot of salespeople, my manager doesn't train me. Go train yourself. Go read books. Get on webinars. If you leave it up to somebody, I talk about that. Not only am I a quick learner, I'm a learner junkie. So people ask me, do I read pleasure books? No. I read so much on the internet and so many business books. I don't have time for social books. And if you can, I mean, I think today there's such a plethora of coaches out there. Mm-hmm. And it's, I remember back in the 80s when I started the Association of Women in Sales here in Broward, here in Florida. It was because, we needed each other and then if someone was a coach or said she was a coach, nobody wanted that coach. Now everybody wants a coach. That's the good news. That's changed. So I also say, hire a coach. And don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to have a meeting with your boss and share your goals with your boss. They don't often know to ask. Mm-hmm. Sit down and say, this is where I see myself here in the company. This is where I'd like to go. What skills? What do I need to do and even ask, is that even feasible? And find out. And if it is feasible, what do I need to do? Because a lot of companies promote just the top performer, and it's not the top performer that needs to be promoted, or what they're looking for in the top performer isn't your numbers necessarily. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But don't be afraid to have that conversation. What's the worst case? They think you're going to leave, and so find somebody who values you and go somewhere.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I just want to recap some of those tips and tricks because some of them I think are pretty different than the ones I've heard before. I love the idea, we always inventory our accomplishments when we're thinking about how we want to progress in our careers. One of the things that you said that really stands out to me is inventory your fears. Really take note of those and really be reflective about whether or not they're real, if they're valid. If they are valid, then great. How do you move past them? I don't know that we've had a speaker on this virtual event series who has really encouraged us to do that, because I think that doing that is such a great practice. So thanks for that tip. And then, of course, this one thing that you said that I really want to highlight is take responsibility for your own destiny, whether that's in the having that conversation with your boss, increasing your professional development, whatever those things are. I think that ensuring that you're the one who's managing it and taking responsibility for it is such great advice. So thank you for that. Okay, we've had a lot of great questions actually come up in the chat here, Alice. And so I'm really sounds like me, Angela. I love this. What's your favorite sales book and your favorite author? How does Alice manage the microaggressions in the workplace? These are all great questions and I want to jump into them. But before we jump into those, which we will, I want to go ahead and open up the exchange to all of the attendees who are watching, because I'm sure they've got a lot of thoughts and questions for you, Alice. So Amelia's going to drop the link to the exchange in the chat box right now. So go in there, put your thoughts and questions in there. I'm also going to share my screen with you all. All you have to do, guys, take out your mobile device. We've got 3 ways to join this exchange. You can go to thoughtexchange.com/join and enter the 9-digit code that you see here on the screen. Or you can take your mobile device, open up your camera, zoom in on the QR code, something will pop down, you click on it, goes right into the exchange so you can participate. Or like I said, Amelia just posted the link in the exchange in the chat box. Hop into the exchange there. Once you get into the exchange, you don't have to sign up for anything. You just agree to the terms of use, go in, and then you're going to share. The question for our exchange today is, what thoughts or questions do you have for Alice? Get in there, share your thoughts, share your questions. We want to know things about, like, what's Alice's favorite sales book or author, you know, all of those things. Once you've shared, then you're going to go over to the star step, and that's where you get to rate things. You get to rate the thoughts and questions of others. So if you see a question in there and you go, oh yeah, that is burning for me, I absolutely want to know what Alice thinks about this, rate that 1 of 5. If it's something you're like, no, I'm not really that curious about it, rate it a 1, just like Uber or Amazon reviews. And then once I've given you a few minutes to do that, then we'll go through the top thoughts report with Alice so we can find out all the things that inquiring minds want to know from her. So in order for you to participate, I have to be quiet. So I'm going to do that. So you can go in there and participate. And then we'll meet you right back here in a couple of minutes to dive into that top thoughts report with Alice. If you guys are still sharing, starring, let's go ahead and discover together. If you're ready, Alice, we're going to jump right into this top thoughts report and start answering the questions and thoughts of those of the attendees today. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, lovely. So I love this first question.
Yeah.
How did you handle envy from others due to your immense success? Envy shows up in so many unhealthy ways. I think this is a great question. I'm curious to know how you handled it.
Not only how, before I handle it, I still see this every single day. Nobody likes the #1 salesperson. They don't. And, so it's back to, I call it being like a duck. Okay? How the water just rolls off the duck. A duck can sit out there in the rain. Okay?
Yeah.
It's back to, if you absorb everybody's negative thoughts or you absorb what everybody else thinks of you, you start losing who you are. So basically, so how do you handle envy? I mean, it's not easy to do. And, you know, you kind of do it at home with the covers over your head sometimes, but you just, it's all back to belief in yourself. Talk to people who believe in you, you know, surround yourself with other successful people and people who you believe in you and believe in yourself, because everyone has something bad. I mean, mine was, I was sleeping with somebody, but now, you know, she knows somebody. They give her the better leads. And it's not the truth. They work harder. They're willing to do the work that others aren't willing to do. Try to be a duck.
Yeah, I love that. I always say that. It's water off a duck. Just let it roll off your back. I think that's great advice.
I have a friend who calls me or texts me, I'm a duck today, quack, quack, quack.
I love that.
Of different ducks.
Oh my gosh, that's such a good little mantra. Today I'm a duck, right? If you start hearing some negativity, today I'm a duck, quack, quack, quack. That's so good. Okay, well, I'm going to take that tip for sure. What did you do when you heard rumors that undermined your success? Similar, or did you just turn into a duck?
Yeah, I mean, you know, they were more coming from my peers. Mm-hmm. You know, they're not coming from they weren't coming from the leadership. They were coming from my peers. So that the duck still applied there.
I love it. Okay, good. What's the best leadership advice you've ever been given?
And I said this earlier. Well, if you're a leader, your job, you're going to get your success through the people who work for you, your direct reports. You know, you're no longer the #1 salesperson. You're going to be the #1 sales leader because your whole team are producing. So the
Right.
best leadership advice is believe in your people more than they believe in themselves. Build
I
them
love
up,
that.
don't shut them down. Coach them.
That's great. Do you think that you came to that space because of your background in teaching, Alice?
Well, the teaching had a lot to do with, yes, because I mean, my kids came in one grade. I had 28 kids, and only 5 of them could read. They were 6th graders. 5 of them could read 6th grade or to 11th grade. Then 1/3 of them weren't even on 3rd grade level, and the other third were still believe 6th grade. And I did the same thing with my kids. I divided them up. I coached them. I made them feel good about themselves. In fact, I'll tell you if I have time, the principal, I got sick, like the flu overnight kind of thing. Come back 3 days later, I get called into the principal's office because my kid, and I said, what? She says, your kids wouldn't listen to the substitute. And I said, well, what happened? And they said, well, they all said they had assignments to complete by Friday. So they were independent, wanted to do their work, didn't want to sit there and read off the same page. And I got in trouble because of that. So
I love it. You believed in them so much and then they succeeded. And then you did that same thing with your sales teams.
yeah.
I love it. That's great advice. What's your advice for people that criticize us sales pros for being too assertive? I think this is great because especially as women, I think we're programmed to be concerned about this, about being too, quote unquote, too assertive. What's your advice for that?
So my advice, one, where's it coming from? Who's saying this to you? And, you know, because it's not your customers telling you you're too assertive. So in that question, I'd want to know, is it your boss telling you you're too assertive, or is it just your peers telling you too assertive? And like anything, it's not a fight. It's a conversation. And so my advice for people who criticize, and they say you're too assertive, I would just say, give me some examples. I need to learn. I need to be better.
Right.
I hear you. And just ask them, give me an example of how I'm too assertive. You know, they're not used to that. They want you to fight them and then they want to prove that you're wrong. It's just like responding to objections. The best way to respond to an objection is not to have an answer, have a question. So when someone criticizes you, you don't have to defend yourself. Ask a question. Help me understand. I want to be better. I don't want to be, if that's going to hurt my sales, and just turn them into helping coach and work through, is it really assertive or what's really behind that?
I think that's such great advice too, right? Don't come back with an answer. Come back with another question.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Their definition of, if I asked you what's your definition of assertive, and then I asked 5 other people, I'm going to get 5 different definitions. So who do I answer?
Absolutely.
I'm not going to win. I need to know what you mean by assertive.
No, that's really great advice. As someone who always wanted to succeed, how did you determine the path you really wanted to go down? Oh, I'm so curious to know the answer to this one, Alice. You mentioned there being the progressive climb, but was there any time that you took a second and thought about it first, like where you really wanted to be? So I love this question, especially for people like yourself who's an overachiever. Who could essentially be successful in many different realms? How did you determine your path?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. When I just knew I wanted to be a teacher and that's all I thought. But once I started teaching, it was like, okay, do I want to do this every day for 30 years? At some point in the few years I was teaching, so it happened in the first year because I started taking my advanced studies to be a principal right away.
Right.
And so it's not that I got my first job and laid out my career path. I think I got in, I looked around, I at some point said, just where do I want to be 5 years, 10 years, 30 years, and then looked around what the opportunities were. And then what I'll tell anybody is, like an example, wherever you start is not where you're going to end up, and that's okay. Have a path, and then something's going to happen, and then you're going to go and, it's going to happen because you believe in yourself and you believe that you can achieve, things are going to come your way too.
I love that. And did your definition of success change over the course of your career as well? You wanted to succeed, but what success looked like, did that change as you continued to grow in your career?
Yes. and it wasn't always about the money. Sometimes it was it was about the advanced position. And but I have to say, my father owned his own business and had 2 jobs on the side while he had his own business. And so I think I just saw that was ingrained in me, or I observed it, and I put it in my bloodstream too.
Yeah, I love that. That's why role models are so important, you being one of them for all of us and as sales leaders. So how did you help support and promote other women once you got into leadership roles?
One of the ways, I hired a lot of women.
Good.
And
Love
also,
hearing that.
I'm not a believer. Here's what I did. I'm not a believer in the sink or swim routine. There are too many companies out there, even in the Fortune 1000 that I do business with, that hire the reps. Here's our product. Here are our rates. Go out and get them, Tiger. Okay? That's not going to work. No one, and that also comes back from being a teacher. How you training. And so how did I help support women? I did a few things. One, I hired women. I coached them. All my salespeople got every single week, got 2 kinds of coaching: field ride coaching and one-on-one coaching. Okay, always discussing. The other thing I did to support women is 6 women in 1986. We sat around a kitchen table and said, there's one woman, there are too few women in sales, and we started in Broward County in Florida, we started the Association of Professional Saleswomen. And we met once, and we ended up, it lasted about 18 years. We ended up with 120 members. We had a program every single month about, some type of skill set that would help a women in business, but we ended up, we had our own, what I call board of directors. You had your own mentors. And it made it easy, because if I needed insurance, she was there. If I needed an accountant, she was there. So you did business with, you supported other women by doing business with other women.
I love that. That's incredible that you not only did it within your own organization, but then you also created an additional organization outside of that. Similar, like you said, your dad, right? He had his own business and then he had all these others on the side. You just didn't stop at one thing to support women. I think that that's fantastic. How do you support other women while also advocating for yourself? Competitive infighting due to lack of opportunity seems like a real issue for women in the workplace, especially in leadership. It's a great question.
So if I'm interpreting that competitive infight due to lack of opportunity, is that because there's only 1 or 2 positions and there might be 10 women on the sales team? I'm not quite sure. What comes to me immediately with that question is, where you're working is not the only company.
It's true.
And you know what? I'll tell you this. The first 20 years I've been in business, going on probably 38 years now. First 20 years, my client base were the newspapers. I have contracts with all the newspaper chains in the country. And you get the phrase is you get newspaper in your blood. And, might be in other industries too. But and we're there a long time. And everybody, well, what could I do outside? And that's the whole thing is, you're not locked into whatever you are. If you're, if right now you're selling pharmaceutical or you're selling cosmetics, whatever, there is life after that. And this is what I coach people. Your skills are transferable. Don't let anybody tell you they're not. You can go to another industry. So that's my answer without too much other thought on how to support them. Don't let those other women tell you, unfortunately, and I don't surround myself with backstabbing women that I still hear exist. I stay away from them. Don't get sucked in.
If you find yourself in that place, you're in the wrong place. Because really this is I think the underlying issue of a question like this is that they're maybe finding themselves in a place where they have a perception of scarcity, when really there's a million opportunities for women in leadership roles around the world. So if you're in a place that's limiting those opportunities, then maybe go to the next place.
And it's the same thing. If there are 10 or 15 women vying for 1 or 2 spots, go have that conversation with the manager. Too many women sit back and say, I'll just do a good job and let them come talk to me. Take the lead.
Yeah, I love that. Take the lead. Yeah, if you want the lead, take the lead.
Take the lead.
I think that's great. Okay, we have time for one more question. What's one thing, and I love ending it here, what's one thing you wish you knew when you first started in sales? What would you say to new to sales, younger Alice?
I think the one thing, looking back, if I had done a little bit differently, was certainly listen more.
Mm-hmm. Listen
So
more.
listen more. They teach product knowledge so much, and I think my numbers would have happened faster. Is when I look back, is that if I had gone in and nobody cares what you know until they know you care, and so that phrase, go back, ask them questions, learn about them, then present. So listen more up front before you offer your products and services.
That's great. That's great. Alice, this has been so wonderful. Like I said, we've gotten so many good nuggets of wisdom from you, and we're so lucky to have someone like you in our network that we can lean on for all of this wisdom. So thank you so much for sharing it with us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's been great.
Okay,
And
good. So guys,
everybody listening.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks so much, Alice. I'm sorry we didn't get to all the questions today, guys, but if you want to get in touch with Alice to dig deeper into her knowledge base or into what she does, feel free to reach out to her directly on LinkedIn, or of course, I can always put you in touch with them. Amelia and I are going to send out a link to this recording so that you can share it with all of the women in sales leadership in your network. We'll also send a link out to this exchange, so you'll have this report with you. If you'll stick around for the next 15 minutes, guys, we've got Claire Murphy, one of our sales development representatives, waiting for you on a different Zoom link that Amelia's posted in the chat. If you have any questions about Thoughtexchange, you can join her there to discuss it. Otherwise, we'll see you at our next virtual event. Thanks so much.